Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Hot Toys Superman from Batman vs. Superman. Now I know what you guys are thinking. What's he doing reviewing a Hot Toys figure? He doesn't collect those. And you're right, I don't collect them, so we're gonna make this short and sweet. It's a bad figure, don't buy it. But in all seriousness, it is actually a pretty good figure, and you're right though, I don't collect Hot Toys, and the reason I don't collect them is they just don't really appeal to me, but that is not to say I'm not familiar with them. In fact, I've handled basically every single comic book and video game based Hot Toys figure that's come out. My brother collects them, and so I'm actually very familiar with them. I've seen almost all of them, like I said, and so I think I'm going to start reviewing them. I've worked out a deal with him where I can do that for you guys, so it should work out for everybody. I'll review Hot Toys, I don't have to collect them, you get to see them, and everybody's happy. So without further ado, let's get this guy off the stand and take a closer look. Okay, so this guy stands just over 12 inches, about 12 1/4 inches. I keep thinking I'm going to fit these figures on my blue ruler. They keep not working. I got to get a longer ruler if I'm going to start reviewing these figures. Anyway, it's just over 12 inches, so I'd say to the top of his head about 12 1/4. That sounds about right. And then about 31.5 centimeters, right around there. So that should be fine, but realistically speaking, you're going to adjust the height anyway by how you have his torso aligned, and then if you're going to put him on the flight stand. Now this guy does have some accessories, not a whole bunch. I was expecting a little bit more, but we do have some. We have the obvious fist hands that come with him, on him in the package. We have the open palm hands that are just completely relaxed. We have the open palm hands with the fingers kind of extended, kind of stretched out, spread out a little bit. And then we have the other relaxed hands, which are kind of with a closer grip. So we have those, and this is the Sideshow exclusive version, so he comes with the Kryptonite, which has batteries included, and it lights up. I have to say, it looks good lit up when you have really harsh lights on it, because it kind of evens it out a little bit, but just in regular daylight or in the dark, the light is really harsh and not particularly impressive. I have to say, it doesn't look that great. And then we do also have the display stand, which has this really nice kind of fold-out Batman v Superman logo on there. It has the metallic plate on the front and the bendable stand in the back to hold him in his flight pose. So plenty of posing options in that regard. However, the one accessory that I really wanted, we don't have. I wanted an alternate head with this guy because in this movie, it's kind of a big deal that he has heat vision. I mean, he uses the heat vision. He makes that face when he's looking at Lex. He uses the heat vision a few times. It looks awesome. This figure, this awesome new figure, doesn't have it included. Kind of a bummer. I was hoping for that. That said, he does have his normal head, and I don't know. It's definitely a great sculpt. You know, it looks super realistic, very nicely done. I like the head sculpt a whole bunch. As far as the likeness goes, it's clearly a really good sculpt. It's like 90-95% accurate. I think his eyes are probably a little bit too small and his nose is probably a little bit too big. It's still obviously recognizable as Henry Cavill. Personally, I think it's good enough. That's a good way of putting it. It's not bad by any means. It's not fantastic. It's recognizable, so that's good. The paints are good. Everything is standard Hot Toys quality. It's just the likeness isn't perfect. And I guess that's probably the best way to say it. As far as the whole body now, we have this whole suit. The entire body has this kind of rubber suit over it, cloth and rubber combination. And that gives him his Kryptonian suit, which is really cool because it's all embossed. All the little scales and everything you see around there, that's all there. It's all tangible, physical. You can touch it. The chest thing, it's extra thick there actually, so that's pretty cool. It's all there, so that's really nice. But because it is there, it's going to have an impact on the articulation, and that's one of my other issues with Hot Toys. And I'm sure even you Hot Toys collectors have to realize at some point, I can't really pose this guy that well, and that's going to be the issue with this guy. Looks great, really not that posable despite the articulation. We are going to go through the articulation though, so let's take a look at that now. The head is on a double ball peg on top of the neck, which is good, except it doesn't have the best range. Now, the thing is, they tell you, lift the head up before you pose it so you don't scratch the neck. That's fine, but it still doesn't have that much range. You can make it look up a little bit, you can make it look down a little bit, and you can turn it. I mean, that's fine, but he's not going to be in any particularly dynamic poses. You could probably force it if you really wanted to, but I don't know if I would recommend forcing it on a figure like this that warns you about scratching the paint when you pose it. I don't know. That's a risk you might be willing to take. I don't think I would be on a figure that's expensive like this. Now, I've been told that he might have a double ball peg in the neck that lets the entire neck move. The neck is a softer material, but it really doesn't feel like it wants to move, and I don't want to force it too much to see if I can just free up a double ball peg, so I'm going to have to say it doesn't have articulation there, and even if it does, it doesn't work, so we're going to have to operate on that assumption. For the shoulders, we have the full swivel around this way, and then the ball hinge that brings the arm up. Unfortunately, you can't get it up any higher than that. Not quite horizontal, parallel with the ground. And then rotating the arm forward, you can do it, but of course you have to contend with the suit. So as you rotate it around, you're going to have to kind of readjust the suit the entire way, and be super careful because it's very thin, and you could definitely mess it up. And it even says in the instructions, basically, don't mess it up by posing it. So be super careful, no pun intended. You can pose him, but as you can see, it's going to bunch, but that's fine because it looks pretty realistic since it's so thin. It's scaled nicely. Very risky, I think, to really mess with a suit this thin in very dynamic poses. Be extra careful. Nice musculature underneath. The silver body underneath really comes through nicely. You get that nice metallic look, but very careful with the posing if you're going to pose it at all. You have the bicep swivel right here, which is nice, perfectly functional, but you're going to have to be so careful. Little tiny movements when posing this guy. So again, you're not going to have the most dynamic range. Double jointed elbow, which you don't have to be as careful with this because it basically just folds, and you get pretty good range. You can see right there. Better than 90 degrees, so that's pretty good. And then the bunching, not so bad. His elbow does stretch a bit right here, so I wish they would figure out some way to do that. I'm not sure how, but it could be better. It looks pretty good though, and the bunching in the suit is not really a problem. And then for the wrists, we have your standard ball hinge. So that will swivel in the forearm and in the hand, and you will have no problem posing that. And they just pop right off, swap right out. No problems at all. And this is, the suit itself is not really actually connected down there, so you don't have to really worry about too much. You shouldn't have any trouble posing the hands. Now for the torso, we have a double ball peg in the upper, like right underneath the rib cage, the diaphragm area. Then we have one down in the waist as well. But if you can imagine, it's difficult to move the shoulder. This whole area, be extra careful. You can lean him forward, and leaning him forward is not too bad, but you will get the bunching, which again, it's not great, and you can kind of stretch it down to try to hide that, but it doesn't really want to do much. So you can do that. You can lean him side to side, but again, it feels like I'm going to tear the suit every time I pose him, and there's not a whole lot of give over here. Slightly stretchy material, but not much. And then rotating it around, very iffy, and it does bunch a bunch. So, it looks good. It doesn't look bad, but it's not. It seems to me like you're going to end up with almost no range of motion. Again, same thing down here. Very iffy. You can rotate it side to side. You can lean it forward and back. In fact, in the package, when I opened this guy, his abdominal section was kind of over his pelvis section, and it created kind of a pouch right here. And it's still a little bit stretched out. Hopefully that'll kind of suck back in there, but it's really stretched out right there and kind of loose. But still, I can't really do much with it because it stretches out the suit too much. I'm afraid it's going to just tear it. So you don't really get to pose it that well. Hips are standard T-jointed ball hinges, but they don't go very far forward, and they bunch a bunch. Again, bunch a bunch. I've said it again, and bunch a bunch, but that's what it is. So this is kind of why I don't collect them. You just really can't pose them. The hip doesn't go very far forward. That's about it. Only about 45 degrees. And bunching. Out to the side. No problem, really. Pretty good range. That's more than enough. He's never going to need to be in more than that. The bunching, I think it's acceptable since you have to bring the leg all the way out. I kind of wish it didn't have as much, but there's no way around that doing the full suit, so I'll give it that one. There is a thigh swivel in there, but you have to do that shimmy with the suit again, and you don't really have that much range in the thigh swivel without really risking the suit tear. So don't expect a whole lot. We have a double jointed knee just like the elbow, really good range. Can't complain about that. Knee is definitely not good looking from the bottom. If you're going to look at the side, not so good. From the front, not so bad. What I would recommend is you just do a single bend using the top joint, and it looks a lot more organic. You can see the kneecap looks pretty good. If you do the bottom bend, it doesn't look very realistic at all. And then the feet. These guys are on double ball pegs. They have a little bit of play going back, a little bit going forward. Not so bad. Probably good enough, I would say. And then you do have the side to side. Of course, it's just a double ball peg, and it has enough range. I think you'll be okay with that. The cape, obviously no wires or anything, but it's made really well. They did a really good job with the material. It's 2-ply, it's nice and hemmed all the way around. Very nice, fine fabric, looks really, really good. It does have a zipper back here, but you probably don't want to mess with that unless you're going to customize one or mess with it, which I guess a lot of you guys do. I wouldn't, because I don't want to mess with a $210 figure. But that's okay. I mean, it's there so you can take it apart, and if you don't want to do that, leave the cape down. I do wish the cape hid the top there a little bit better, but not a big deal. So all in all, it doesn't come with a bunch of accessories, plenty of hands. I do wish it had the alternate head. The stand is pretty nice. That's all right. Kryptonite, it's okay. It's an exclusive piece, so you won't see that unless you got the Sideshow exclusive. As far as the look of the figure, it's great. If you want to put him in a neutral pose, which is what I see a lot of Hot Toys figures doing, just standing in a hero pose, looks fantastic. Recommend it for sure. If you want to put it in a dynamic pose, very difficult, very risky, and in some cases impossible because the articulation just doesn't provide for it. So I can't recommend it on that grounds. So my opinion hasn't changed on Hot Toys. I'm probably going to keep reviewing them if you guys like it. If not, it depends how many of you are Hot Toys collectors. I imagine most of you that are going to tell me to go pound salt because it looks the way it's supposed to and it doesn't need to be posed. But if you like what I'm saying, you guys like the Hot Toys figure reviews, let me know. Maybe I'll keep doing it, maybe I won't. I don't know. I do like the figure. It hasn't converted me. I'm not going to buy one for myself, but if you guys want one and you're already a Hot Toys collector, then you're going to know what to expect, and you're going to like it a whole bunch because it is what it's supposed to be and they did a good job with it. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos every single day. We talk about action figures, custom figures, video games, TV, movies, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you check out that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.